Hi, it's Justin Paperny, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about ethics. For some background, the last few years I've contributed the majority of my content to my YouTube channel, White Collar Advice, which is focused on my prison consulting career and helping white collar defendants better prepare for all phases of their journey through the criminal justice system. But since my release in 2009, I've also worked as a corporate ethics speaker and compliance on fraud training, white collar crime. My clients include KPMG, Wells Fargo, the FBI Academy, USC, my alma mater. And it's interesting, I wrote this blog recently about why I've decided to get back into corporate speaking and ethics and compliance type training. And for some background, when I began my career out of prison, I was doing a lot of the speaking and a lot of consulting. And at the end of some of my corporate events, I'd wonder if I'm having the real impact that I'd like to have. Can a 30 or 60 minute or 2 hour talk about the consequences of white collar crime, the importance of making values based decisions, can that really change someone's life? Or if not change their life, can it really influence the decisions they make? And I wasn't so sure. I got good feedback from my presentations. My ratings were always at the top of all of the presenters. I think in part because I speak well, but also because I'm talking about prison a little bit, which is also a very interesting topic. I have to acknowledge that. So I have wondered for a long time, was I having the impact that I should? I knew the impact I was having as a federal prison consultant. That's a lengthier process. That's a slower and steadier process. Rather than meeting with a prison consulting client once or for 2 hours, some of these white collar cases can go on for 2 or 3 years. So in 2013, I decided to step away from the corporate speaking, aside from a few events. I went to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. So I did some events, but I wasn't promoting it. I was turning down some events, including some lucrative events, and I focused only on the consulting. Then a few months ago, I began to get some random phone calls from people who had been in my audiences over the last 4 or 5 years, from Arkansas to Savannah, Georgia, to Chicago, to New Mexico, telling me, Justin, you may not remember me, but I was in a talk you gave many years ago, and I had a recent situation happen at work, and because of the advice and your talk, I made the right decision. I just want to thank you. And I didn't remember them. I couldn't even really remember the talk, I have to admit. But they told me that it impacted them, and maybe it was only a 60-minute talk. And over a few months, I got a lot of these random calls. So I said, you know what, maybe I will branch back out and begin to do some corporate speaking on ethics and finance and white collar crime and actually begin to promote it, because the majority of events that I've had have been just repeat and referral customers who continue to invite me back. So I created justinpaperny.com, where I'm going to focus on giving away Ethics in Motion, which is a collection of prison consulting case studies of some of my clients. I wrote that a year after my release from prison. I talk about gray areas, intent versus criminal intent, working openly with your lawyer, getting into this fraud triangle, pressure, rationalization, and opportunity, and how good people can make bad, out-of-character decisions and walk them through the consequences. And thankfully, a handful of universities, including USC, have asked students to have made the book required reading. So that's awesome and a great thrill for me as a USC graduate. So justinpaperny.com is going to focus more on my corporate speaking career, ethics, and I had my first new talk a few days ago at University of San Diego, where I've been 8 or 9 times, but I was there for the first time in about a year, in part because I have been turning down events. So I drove down to San Diego, spoke to an MBA accounting class, I believe ethics accounting class, for about 2.5 hours. I shared my story, talking about ethics and values. And I want to close with this one thought that I thought was relevant. At the end of the lecture, a student said to me, when you were in USC, would this talk have impacted you? And I talked about my story through the criminal justice system while I was a stockbroker, about decisions I made. I shared some stories from Ethics in Motion, notably Chapter 3, Joshua, who was a CFO client of mine, and Chapter 6, Steve, who was an accounting client of mine in Florida. The student said, would this talk have helped you? And this is how I'll close. I have to own here, and as I owned in that ethics class, that the talk probably would not have influenced me when I was a student at USC. Had someone from prison come in to talk about ethics and the consequences of cheating, I probably would have tuned out. Even when I was a young executive at Bear Stearns and UBS or Merrill Lynch, I probably would have tuned out had someone come in like me to give this talk. And well, why is that? Why would I disregard it or ignore it? Because I never would have given any thought that I could someday be a criminal, ever. As I wrote in my work, I could have imagined catching the rarest disease before I could ever imagine serving time in federal prison. So because I could never imagine myself being a criminal or working into gray areas and crossing the line that could someday separate me from my family, had someone come in to talk about prison and ethics and the consequences of cheating, I would have tuned out. And that's why I was so grateful the students appeared to listen, but I wanted to bring that reality to them, that with their backgrounds like mine of opportunity and some privilege and hard work and people that held them accountable, the thought that they could someday end up in prison or even deal with a civil lawsuit, which that alone will wreck your week, the thought that they could cross over into those gray areas and even criminal boundaries seemed very foreign to them. And it's part of the reason I told them I probably would have tuned out. And I'm grateful that they didn't. So this is a little introductory video that I'm going to put on justinpaperny.com, and I'm going to begin to contribute some real content to my Justin Paperny YouTube channel, which is separate from White Collar Advice, which is my prison consulting company. I encourage you, if you're watching this and you want to learn more about ethics and values and white collar crime, not just about life in prison, that's on the other channel. If you have interest in learning more about the consequences of fraud, how to overcome and deal with people around you that might be unethical, that might be looking to take advantage of you, exploit you, workplace pressures that we all face, opportunities we may seize, this would be a great channel for you. So you should get a copy of Ethics in Motion. It's free, save your money. You should subscribe to this channel, and I look forward to doing more ethics events and corporate talks in the coming weeks, months, and years. And I hope I have the privilege of returning to the FBI again, and KPMG and NYU and Wells Fargo and some of the best businesses and universities in America. It was my privilege to go there once, and I hope I have a chance to return. So thank you for watching. Grab my book, it's free, and subscribe. Wish you all well. Bye-bye.